Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman Today, inshallah, we are going to start in chapter 4, which is the aggregate expenditure and equilibrium output. As you know, in the chapter 3 and 2, we focused on the GDP calculation by using the aggregate or the expenditure approach and income approach. And as you know that the GDP calculation or the value of GDP by using the expenditure approach was C plus I plus G plus X minus M, right? Which is the expenditures of different sectors in the economy. The household sector, the expenditure of the government, the rest of the world expenditure, as well as what the business sector expenditures, right? And we explained also the calculation of the GDP by using the income approach. We said that the aggregate income is the value or the total value of income received for all factors production who participated in the production process, right? So we have two concepts: aggregate output and aggregate income. Aggregate output, which is the total market value of the total produced or the produced goods and services in the economy, which is the GDP. If we solve the total production, we will receive income, which is the aggregate income. So we can say that the aggregate output equals the value of aggregate income. So since this time, we will see that, or we will deal with the aggregate income as the aggregate output, right? So in this chapter, we will focus on the value of the consumption. As you know that the GDP equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M, right? In this chapter, we will focus on the C. We will study deep analysis. We will analyze the household consumption in detailed way, right? So we will derive the consumption function, and we will study the relationship between the aggregate income and aggregate consumption. In general, suppose that you are the household. If your income increasing your income, this leads to what? This leads to increasing your consumption, right? This is in general, increasing Y, aggregate income, leads to increasing the aggregate consumption. So there is what? There is a positive relationship between your consumption and your income in general. So the major or the main factors affect the consumption is your income. Your income and your wealth are the main factors affect on your consumption. صح؟ أكثر العوامل تأثر في استهلاكك هو دخلك. Right? So let's start with or begin with the different ideas in the chapter. You will see lots of analysis, diagram, and mathematical exercises. So as you see in this chapter, we will present what factors determine GDP, what causes inflation, unemployment, and the three market arenas. This is the aggregate output. You have an idea about the aggregate output, which is the GDP, the total market value of all produced goods and services or supplies in the economy. Aggregate income, which is the total income received for the factors production who participated in or who participate in the production process. هذه المصطلحات أخذناها في chapter 2 and chapter 3, right? Okay. When we talk about aggregate output or aggregate income, we have the same idea, the same concept. So we will deal with the aggregate output, right? The same concept as the aggregate income, right? And in general, increasing aggregate output leads to what? leads to increase of aggregate income. صح؟ يعني اللي بينتجوا ببيعوا عمليا الانكم تبعه بزيد. صح؟ So in general, increasing Y output leads to increasing income. Here we are talking about Y. Aggregate income, abbreviation تبعها Y, aggregate output Y. So we will, as I mentioned, that we will deal with the aggregate output, the same concept of aggregate income, right? Okay. Let's go to the consumption, the relationship between income, saving, and consumption. For the household, you are as a household. Suppose that you receive income, Y, this is the aggregate income that the household sector receive. Y means income, or the abbreviation of income. You will distribute, or you distribute your income for two things, or two types, or for, yes, two things. Part of your income will go to what? For consumption, and the second part will go to what? Saving. So, Y, income equals consumption plus saving. Part of your income goes for consumption, and the another part goes for saving. So saving equals what? Or aggregate saving. Exactly. Y means the aggregate income minus the aggregate consumption. Right? Aggregate or C or Y minus C. This is the value of aggregate saving. I have a question. Suppose that your income equals 0. Is there a consumption?
No.
Yes. Even if you don't have, or you don't receive income, your consumption will be greater than 0, which called the autonomous consumption. Yes, Rabia. Exactly. It's called the autonomous consumption أو الاستهلاك اللي مش معتمد على الدخل. So we have two types of consumption. The first one is the aggregate, the autonomous consumption, اللي هو A في معادلة الC, and the second part is the dependent or related consumption, اللي هو الدخل أو الاستهلاك المعتمد على الدخل. Right? تمام. So let's go to, so as you see here, the aggregate income for the households goes to consumption and saving. صح? Fine. These are the main determinants of consumption. محددات الاستهلاك. As you know, as we mentioned, that we have two main factors affect consumption. اللي هو الهاوسهولد income, الهاوسهولد wealth, وفي عندنا الانترست rate and the household's expectation about the future. Let's analyze or do analysis. In the first case, okay, I will come back to your point. Let's go quickly to analyze the relationship between these determinants and consumption. If number one, the household income in general, if income increased, this leads to increase in consumption. The household wealth has the same effect on the consumption. Increasing your wealth, الثروة تبعتك لما بتزيد, this leads to increasing consumption. Right? What about the interest rates? Suppose that you have a $1,000 and the bank wants to give you more interests. In this case, you would prefer to save it at the bank. In this case, your consumption would decline. صح؟ هلا إذا البنك بده يعطيك interest أعلى, الconsumption تبعك بيقل. مظبوط ولا؟ Okay, ربا, whatever. Okay, but we are talking about اللي هو الاقتصاد الرأسمالي in general. So increasing the interest rate leads to a decreasing of consumption, because in this case you would prefer to deposit your income or part or larger part of your income at the bank to gain profits or interests, right? So in this case, the consumption or your tendency for consumption would what? Would decline. Exactly. صح؟ طيب. What about the household's expectation about the future? If you expect that your income would increase, your consumption would increase. صح? And if you expect that the price, exactly, it's related to the expectation about the future. If you expect that the prices would increase by the next 2 months, or your current consumption would what? Would increase. I think it's clear, and you have studied something in the microeconomics. Let's go to this example. As you see, we have the aggregate income. Why? By $1 billion. And this is the aggregate consumption, C, and we are going to derive saving, aggregate saving. In this example, when the aggregate income equals 0, you have to consume. Your consumption is 100. This is what? The autonomous consumption. الاستهلاك اللي ملوش دعوة بالدخل. في استهلاك ملوش دعوة بالدخل، بمعنى انه هنا الدخل يساوي 0 وفي عندك استهلاك. طيب. When your income increased to 80, your consumption increased by 60. From 100 to 160. صح? Increasing, as you see, from 80 to 100 to 200 and so on, you can see different changes in your consumption. And as you see, it's positive, because as in this case, we have increasing of Y, we have increasing consumption. Increasing, right? But what do you see? In general, I will explain something related to the consumption function, دالة الاستهلاك. ما أعرفش إذا مرت عليكم قبل هيك ولا لا. Okay. أيوة exactly. هل قد حناخده إن شاء الله. The consumption function C equals A plus BY, and let's analyze these concepts. A will be where C will Y. C is the consumption. This is the consumption function. This is the consumption. A is the autonomous consumption, which is the value of your consumption لما بيكون الواي يساوي 0 equals 0. A هذا الجزء من الاستهلاك غير المعتمد على الدخل. This is A. A is the value of consumption when your income or the income equals 0. Right? What about B? B is called the slope of the consumption function, or it's called the marginal propensity to consume. الميل الحدي للاستهلاك. خلينا نشوف كيف شو يعني. إيه؟ B. Yes. Y is income. B. And we will discuss it deeply now. تقلقوش، لقيت البي هنحللها بتفاصيلها كلها. B is the marginal propensity to consume. To understand the concept here, or the marginal propensity to consume. Suppose that you receive a $1,000 each month or monthly. This is your monthly salary. تاخد $1,000. marginal propensity to consume الميل الحدي نحو الاستهلاك. قديش انت بتميل للاستهلاك لو زاد دخلك؟ or MBC اللي قد حنشوفها MBC. Suppose that you are granted a salary of $1,000 a month, right? And your income increased by $100. دخلك زاد بمقدار $100 كمان. So suppose your income increased by $100, or so it has become قديش؟ $1,100. هذا اللي صرت تاخده. The question is, part of this increasing of your income جزء من المية هذا وين؟ بروح على السيفنج وجزء بروح على الكونسومشن. صح؟ هلا ال percentage increasing or the percentage goes to the consumption, it's called the marginal propensity to consume. So suppose انه اخذنا 70 من المية وديناهم على الكونسومشن. قديش 70 من المية؟ 70%. 70%. قديش اذا راح على السيفنج؟ 30%. صح؟ So suppose انه we used this increasing income $100 هدول, part of them goes to consumption. 70%, $70 goes for consumption or to consumption, and $30 goes for saving. هلا قديش السبعين من المية؟ 70%. So B in this case equals 70%. Right? يا شباب 70% هدول من الزيادة اسمها أو اللي هو اسمها البي أو المارجنال propensity to consume. This is exactly, it's the marginal propensity to save. الميل الحدي نحو الادخار. تمام؟ So suppose that we would like to derive the MBC in this case. The value or to calculate B. أمسح. Okay. B or MBC, marginal propensity to consume, equals delta C over delta Y, which is C2 minus C1 over Y2 minus Y1. And let's come back to this exercise to understand, to derive B and A. To derive A is what? A is the value of your consumption when your income equals 0. So قديش ال A? 100. صح؟ So في هذه الدالة هيك اللي هي C, as you know, equals A plus BY. A in this example equals how much? 100, because A is the value of consumption when your income equals 0. صح؟ طب let's derive B اللي هو الميل نحو الاستهلاك، الميل الحدي نحو الاستهلاك. And in the first case, this is what? Y1, Y2. صح? This is Y1, Y2, C1, C2. When your income increased by 80, قديش زاد الاستهلاك؟ by 60. صح؟ بس قديش هذا؟ To derive or to calculate B or the marginal propensity to consume, MBC or B in this formula, B equals C2 minus C1 قديش؟ 160 minus 100 over Y2 minus Y1. Y2 equals how much? 80 minus 0 equals 60 over 80. How much? 0.75. Right? If we take another case, suppose this is Y1, Y2, C1, C2. Let's apply the same formula. B equals C2 minus C1 over Y2 minus 1 minus C1. So C2 equals 175 minus 160 over how much? 100 minus 80 equals 15 over 20 equals 0.75. So let's come back to the idea. B, as we mentioned, is the percentage change in your consumption when your income increased by $1. يعني لو زاد دخلك $1 بكم زاد الاستهلاك تبعك. This is the marginal propensity to consume. So as you see, we have increasing here in income from 80 to 100. Your consumption increased from 160 to 175 to 175. So بكم نسبة قديش نسبة الميلك للاستهلاك. This is the idea, right? واضحة ولا مش واضحة؟ تمام. So in all cases, if we applied on all cases, we will derive that the MBC or the marginal or B in this formula is constant equals 0.75 or 75%. Right? Is there a problem? Okay. Suppose that we have income, consumption, and we would like to derive saving. Saving equals what? Y minus C, exactly. So saving, or the aggregate saving, when we talk about saving, consumption, income, in general we're talking about the aggregates. So saving equals Y minus C. So in this example, Y minus C. 0 minus 100 equals minus 100. طب واحد بيقول لي من وين غطاهم الكونسمبشن المية هذولا؟ دين، قد يكونوا دين. ويسموا هنا it's called this saving. ادخار سالب، لأنه صار دخلك بالسالب، أي مصاري تجيب لك تعوض، بدك تسد، صح؟ So 80 minus 160 minus 80 and so on. Right? طيب when Y equals C قديش saving? 0 exactly. هيو. When your income or the aggregate income equals the aggregate consumption, the aggregate saving equals 0. But if the aggregate income is larger than the aggregate consumption, saving would be positive. If, and vice versa for sure, if your income is smaller than the aggregate consumption, we have a this saving or a negative saving, right? تمام? طيب, let's derive the marginal propensity to saving as your classmates explain. That this, as you know, this is B. We calculate it and it was 0.75 صح؟ الMPC, the marginal propensity to consume. يعني $100 هذول راح مستهلك منهم $75. هذا معناه صح؟ قديش بضل على السيفنج وده؟ 25% صح؟ So let's derive or calculate the marginal propensity to save, or the marginal propensity for saving. MBS امسحها. Okay. Marginal propensity to save or for saving equals, as you know, that MBC equals delta C over delta Y. And in this example, it was equal to 0.75, right? MBS equals delta S over delta Y, or S2 minus S1 over Y2 minus Y1. So let's come back to the example. خذوا any cases, any two cases. Okay, the last two cases. خذ. This is Y1, Y2, S1, S2. and apply the formula. So MBS, the marginal propensity to save, equals S2 150 minus 100 over 1000 minus 800 equals how much? 50 over 200 equals 0.25. So what do you see? Exactly. MBS plus MBC equals 1 or 100%. صح? Yes, it's a formula. So in this case we derive that the MBC plus MBS equals 1 always. Because when I have received additional income of $100, part of this income goes to consumption and the second part goes for saving. Who has any questions? Huh? Sorry? B? No. P, MP, exactly, okay. Marginal propensity, exactly, thank you. MP's marginal propensity for consume a person. إيه؟ لا تفرق. طيب. Okay. So let's derive the consumption function. The consumption function. In this diagram, as you see, it illustrates the relationship between consumption. Yes. No, we are talking about the household sector. Here, when we talk about C, we are talking about the household consumption. We are not talking about the private sector. It has another issue. For this is it's related to the business sector. The business sector, if they have receive income, their income will go for C and I. Right? But for the households, it goes for C and S, consumption and saving. But we are analyzing the GDP. GDP, as we mentioned, includes the consumption, I, G, X minus M. So in this class or this lecture, we are going to analyze the C. As you see, we are focusing on the aggregate consumption for the household sector, right? But later on, we will enter the I in the formula, right? So as you see, this is Y, and this is C, consumption. When your income equals 0, how much was C? 100 in our example, صح? هيو. In this example, as you see, this is the consumption function here, C and Y. When the consumption or when income equals 0, how much is C? 100. And then the increasing of Y from 80 Y 80, how much is the aggregate consumption? 160. So 80, 160, and so on. So as you see, we have a direct relationship between Y and C, right? And this is what? The intercept. هذا التقاطع. What is it? It's A, because it's the value of consumption when Y equals 0. صح? مظبوط? In this example, as you see, this is, or 100 here, is the value of consumption when income equals 0. صح? So we cannot imagine that this line or the production or the consumption function, هذه دالة الاستهلاك, the consumption function line, we cannot imagine that it would start from 0, because there is no consumption equals 0. It's impossible that the consumption of the household equals 0, even if your income equals 0. حتى لو كان دخلك يساوي صفر بتروح إن شاء الله إيه؟ فيش حد ما بيستهلكش. Exactly. Some families in the Gaza Strip doesn't or don't receive income, but they every day they consume. Okay, but you are part of the family. Okay, so as you see, to derive the consumption function, C equals A plus BY, and we have derived A and B from this information or data. صح؟ من هذه البيانات اشتقينا ال A واشتقينا ال B. So let's come back to something. So as you see, this is the consumption function, which means إنه الconsumption C is function of Y, or when Y increased, the consumption increased. We have a positive relationship between Y and C. When your income increased in the long term, your the marginal propensity to consume would decline. هلا بتصفي انت مستكفي، يعني انت سبوز انه كان دخلك $1000 صرت تاخذ $10,000. تمام؟ اي زيادات هلا ال $10,000 is for enough for consumption، وبالتالي المارجن الام بي سي بصير اعلى من الام بي اس. ميلك للادخار بصير اعلى من ميلك للاستهلاك، لانه انت عمليا مغطي كل الكونسبشن اللي بدك اياه. صح ولا لا؟ وصلت؟ ايه؟ Okay, but you are a household. So when we talk about the household, we are not talking about investment. We are talking about the consumption, right? طيب. What about this? As you see, as we explained, that the B, or the marginal propensity to consume, as delta Y, or sorry, delta C over delta Y, and this is the slope. So this is, yes, delta C over delta Y. This is the marginal propensity to consume, right? This is the production or the consumption function, A plus PY. تمام? And as you see, B is between 0 and 1. Suppose that the increasing of $100 that you have received on your income, $100 اللي جوك زيادة هدول. Suppose that you used all of this amount, $100, for saving. In this case, MBC equals what? 0, right? The maximum amount of MBC, suppose that you use all of this amount, $100 هدول, لو يعني consumption, how much is the MPC? One, right? Or 100%. 100% equals 1. 100 over 100 equals 1. So, in general, MBC or B is smaller than 1, 0. And larger or equal 0. طبعا هذا أو يساوي or equal. And sometimes we can find that the marginal propensity to consume MPC, marginal propensity to consume, sometimes it would be 0, sometimes equals 1, sometimes between 0 and 1, or between 0 and 100%. صح؟ طيب. مين مش فاهم أعيدوا شباب؟ طيب. تمام. So as we derive that the MBC and MPS, MBC plus MPS is always equals 1, right? As you know that Y equals C plus S, right? Delta C over delta Y plus delta S over delta Y. This is 1. Delta C or over delta Y equals what? MBC. plus delta S. This is MPS. تمام. Yes, exactly. The same result, the same conclusion. طيب. Okay, suppose that we have the following consumption function. C equals 100 plus 0.75 Y. If the aggregate income equals 1,200, calculate the consumption, the value of consumption. If C or Y, the aggregate income, if Y equals, suppose 1,000, calculate C, the aggregate consumption. C equals 100 plus 0.75 times 1,000 billion dollars. So C equals 800 plus 750, right? Equals how much? 850. The same result. Now suppose that Y or the aggregate output equals 100, 1,000 or $2,000. $2,000 billion. Calculate C. C equals 100 plus 0.75 times $2,000. So equals how much? 100 plus 1,500. ليش؟ Yes, exactly. طيب. Let's go to the saving function. We will derive the saving function from the consumption function. خمسة. Okay. Okay. So now let's derive the saving function from the consumption function. As you know that C equals A plus BY, right? In this example, C equals 100 plus 0.75 Y, right? مظبوط. Y equals C plus S, consumption plus saving, right? So Y equals, اعمل substitution اللي هو A C A plus B Y plus S، صح؟ وللتبسيط نستخدم الأرقام. sorry. هيا substitution. C is A plus BY. So direct substitution. A plus BY is C. So delete it or omit it. بعدين حط اللي هاي. So بدي أعمل أرقام بس. So Y equals A 100 plus BY, B equals 0.75 plus saving. Sorry. Y. Okay. طيب. Let's shift Y here. يصير عندي شو الوضع؟ Y minus 0.75 Y equals 100 plus saving. Right? This is 1Y. So 0.75 25y equals 100 plus saving. So saving equals 100 minus 100. هذه بتيجي هنا بتصير بالماينس، مظبوط ولا لا؟ بتصير minus 100 plus 0.25y. What do you see? This is so S equals minus A plus 1 minus B في Y. صح؟ مظبوط؟ هيو minus 100 هي minus A because A equals 100. صح؟ هذه متممة ال 75% اللي هي الواحد ناقص B. تمام؟ حاضر ولا يهمك، لقيت ارجع لها. So in this من الاول من هان y minus 0 point هان هيك. okay now we are going to derive the saving function from the consumption function. خلينا امسحه. تشتغلوا ارقام ولا نشتغل رموز؟ طيب اوكي. Is it clear? Y equals C plus S. تمام؟ اما substitution للC. Y equals A plus B Y plus S. تمام؟ The question is derive the saving function. تمام؟ بدنا يطلع السيفنج هذا. ايش بيساوي؟ Y minus A minus BY. صح؟ Another way to calculate. So S equals Y minus BY minus A. صح؟ هذا بين قوسين. So S equals خذ عامل مشترك. شو بضل عندك؟ بضل Y عامل مشترك في 1 ناقص B minus A. ايه الترتيب؟ reorganize the formula. شو بصير عندك؟ بصير S equals minus A plus 1 minus B في الواي. صح؟ بدي اطبقها ارقام هالقيت. اللي قبل اسهل الارقام. خلينا ناخذ الارقام. So if C equals 100 plus 0.75y, derive the saving function from the consumption function. Saving or y equals what? C plus S. اعمل substitution للC. شو بصير عندي؟ y equals 100 plus 0.75y plus S. right? بدك تخلي السيفنج خليه ودي رحل التانيين على الشقة التانية. صح؟ بصير ولا بصيرش؟ So y minus 0.75y minus or S equals هيك. لا عشان ما تعموش يعني. S equals y هذا minus 0.75y minus 100. مظبوط؟ خذ عامل مشترك هيك. هذا واحد. S equals 1y minus 0.75y 0.25y minus 100. عشان نرتبها تاني هيك بشكل منظم. S equals minus 100 plus 0.25y. Or in general saving equals minus A plus 1.1 minus B y. يعني suppose انه we have the consumption function of, suppose انه كانت عندي consumption function, another example انه كانت عندي C equals 50 plus 0.35y. قديش saving function؟ S equals على طول minus A minus 50 زائد متممة ال 35%. قديش؟ 65%. 0.65y. طبعا exactly. صعب ولا؟ يعني any consumption function. خد أي consumption function. C equals 70 plus 0.20y. Derive the saving function. S equals minus 70 plus 0.80y. That's it. Right? في مشكلة؟ عشان هيك in this formula or in this diagram, as you see, this is Y, C, and we have derived S. Calculate the saving. So Y, 0, 80, 100, and so on. The consumption, we have derived S. When Y equals 0, the consumption equals what? 100, and the saving is minus 100, right? So to derive or to draw, هلا دائما always the Y function دالة الدخل تبدأ من وين؟ من الزيرو and the straight line. هذا Y وهذا الكونسومشن. يعطيكم العافية.